And
Well,
even I think even 11 years into my career, 11 and a half years into my career, like the learning's not over. Like I'm still learning new things.
yeah.
Like there's still so much of civil engineering that I don't know and that I don't understand. Like I have a project where I'm gonna have to design a pump in a minute on this project. And I'm like, I don't know how to design a pump. I haven't designed a pump in 11 years of my career.
Hey, folks. Welcome back to another edition of the 21st Century Engineer, a podcast that we put together talking to individuals who have important information, important perspectives for mid career professionals and younger, those interested in the civil infrastructure area, the profession in a broader sense. This is a great conversation for you. And I hope you find that the time you spend with us is time well spent. With that, today we have a former student of mine, an outstanding student, a very interesting young lady. Katie's been gone now a few years from the university, but then again, so have I. Um, she's working in the Houston, Texas area, loves it to death. She can try and explain why. Nothing against Houston. She can explain why. Uh,
That's fair.
Yeah, that lobotomy you had during your senior year probably has something to do with it. But anyway,
Problem.
uh, Katie, thank you for being with us. We're going to kind of talk about things about collaborative leadership and empowerment and personal growth. But with that as kind of a broad topic, how would you like to be introduced if you had the choice?
Well, if I had the choice, my 11-second elevator pitch is I'm Katye Miller McGinnis. I'm a licensed civil engineer, community builder, someone who spent the last decade helping turn ideas into real places, especially in the healthcare and complex development. I care a lot about leadership, collaboration, and making the industry like more human. And I have a lot of experience in the healthcare realm, but I've also helped develop multifamily developments, retail, hospitality, and industrial projects. 95% of my projects are less than 50 acres, with probably 60 to 70% being less than 20 acres. So I'm not doing your large scale like road projects or building bridges. Definitely not a structural engineer, but doing more of the development of those individual like lots that you see come
Yeah,
up, like the hospitals and um, first choice, like ERs, like those kind of things, those clinics that you see, medical outpatient buildings. That's kind of what I focus on.
good, solid civil work that's just big enough that you can't get a big team to work on it, and so you have to be responsible for everything. You
Yep,
have to be a
basically.
comprehensive civil engineer and understand all the facets of what the project what's the touch points are. So,
Yeah, we call it a jack of all trade, a master of none. Is
yeah, I challenge that master of none thing, but anyway. But I think it's important that as you touched on it as you were sliding into that was the fact that the empowerment piece and the contribution to society piece and the focus on others piece. For the audience, I will say that while we have kind of made an internet length connection over the years since you've graduated, there have been some comments that you made, some things that you said that really touched, really resonated with me about the impact, opportunities for impact on others, both as a professional and through engagement and empowering others to be professional. And that's kind of the reason I wanted to invite you on. And I applaud you for it. I really do, seriously.
Yeah,
Let's
thanks.
let's in terms of engagement. And you're saying you're working with healthcare. Could you elaborate a little bit on what kinds of projects you've been working with, the types of, if you will, healthcare and other projects that have led you to where you are in your career?
Yeah, so I work on a lot of hospitals. Greenfield hospitals or even just expansions of hospitals, adding wings to them, adding central electric plants to them. I'm not designing the central electric plant necessarily, but the civil engineering that goes around that, I would. Medical outpatient buildings, that kind of thing, like that. That is all where I love. Um my this is actually funny. One of my projects that I did when I first met my husband was I took down his favorite bank and built a clinic in that location. And he was like, so every time we passed it, he's like, "There's your clinic. Guess you're just treating people in the community." And I'm like, "Sorry, you couldn't get your money." Like it's actually like it's fun. I think the healthcare projects are like if I'm gonna do development, I think almost all development I think is good in my opinion, but that I'm very much biased. But if I'm gonna like tear down a bunch of trees to put something up, I would rather put up a hospital than like a call center, and so like that makes me feel good. They're my feel good projects, I call it. So
Right, right. Well, the outcome is benefit to the community, benefit to
yes.
individuals, and that's what we're called to do as professionals. It's what we're challenged to do a lot of times, even though the project scope may not lead to it. Putting people into the decision process, understanding it, and speaking of people, obviously, you're as a civil engineer, there's a lot of aspects to a healthcare facility, transportation, structures, foundations, geotech,
Right.
environmental, construction issues, and all of that. So obviously, though I suggested it was basically you doing all of this, I'm sure you have teams that work with you. Could you talk a little bit about the problem or the challenges or the solutions even that you have come up with or applied when dealing with interns and new hires to build a team that's able to respond to the needs of the client?
Yeah, yeah. I think building teams is probably like one of my favorite things. And
Okay.
there's internal teams and there's external teams, right? Like as for working on healthcare projects, it is rare when it is just the civil engineer on the project or leading the project. Like majority of the time the architect leads the project and or the MEP might lead if it's like just central electric plant. And so like you're working with external teams, but like building that internal team is like super fun to me. I have, at my old company I had like built up this beautiful team that I like loved, and they I love teaching and mentoring others. Um and like and so it's so fun to me to just have a deep satisfaction of seeing someone understand a concept and then seeing them succeed. Like whenever I can do that and see that, I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, like this is just, whether it's like explaining a grading or technique or like how you can like you can explain a concept all day, but if you can't like actually like get that concept onto a piece of paper that a contractor can then take to like build, it's like there's no point in it. Like you're just explaining a
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
And so there's so many times where and I was like, ooh, there's actually a drawing right here. I was like, I just have a drawings of like, here's me drawing the concept. Like now you go put it in on paper. And
Yeah.
like, and then they'll like bring it back to me, and I'm like, okay, so you're still missing this. Like you have to show that there's a step. You have to show that there's, a drop outside the building to like prevent water from going inside of your building. Like, how are you showing that? How are you communicating that to the client and stuff? And I think that like getting someone who finally like it like you can see like light bulbs go off on people and just like they understand, okay, like this is how I do that and how I see that. And then there's like the second part of it too where you take them like on site and then they're like seeing their drawing come to life
Hmm.
and like actually like, oh, that's not how I like how I wanted that to be in like done. And like I had someone say this sometimes, they're like, that's not how I thought that would be done. And I was like, well, how did you think it would be done? And they're like, then they explain it to me, and I'm like, well, that's not what your drawing showed. So like they built it how your drawing showed. And so like now like what your drawing is like gonna be
Right.
built and stuff.
Right.
And so like It's fun. I just think, and like even like go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say well, first off, I'll mention it sounds to me, at least in the first half of that, you need to go back and get your PhD and go teach at a college because it sounds like you'd really enjoy that life. I know that aspect of seeing the light bulb come on and people, yeah, now I understand what you're talking about. First is rewarding because you've helped somebody understand a new concept, and secondly, you're rewarding because you help them understand a new concept. So there's a lot of fun in that, a lot of challenge to it as well. The second piece, of course, is what you're saying is employers talk a lot about graduates of colleges not being able to communicate, and most people think that means that you don't know how to speak properly, maybe write properly. But the communication process is one of how we illustrate solutions through drawings, presentations, specifications, contract documents, and other components that go into formalizing the project. And getting
Yeah,
what you envision into practice is not an easy challenge. It takes a skill set and helping
yeah,
people do that. The other thing I was going to mention that you didn't touch on, and so to give you an opportunity to at least touch on it a little bit, I'm sure that over time, and the company I'm in right now has been talking a lot about this with consulting firms and individuals. A lot of times you'll find people assigned to you or that come on board for a project that don't really have the skill set that you either need or expected, which I guess is the same thing. And you got to overcome that. I mean, it's not necessarily a matter of saying, "Oh, you said you could do X, Y, Z, but you really can only do an X. I need Y and Z too, so take a hike." Or no, I'm going to have to help you learn how to do Y and Z so we can get this project done. And have you
yeah.
run into that much?
Oh yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Nothing like
And I
knowing
will
the answer before you
say,
ask the question.
yeah, yeah. And I I think, you learn so much in school. I think there's so much that I learned that I didn't know when I first got into school. In the development world, I will say that less than 10% of what I learned in school actually applies to what I do on a daily basis.
Yeah, 100% of
And
what I taught you,
but
but almost nothing of anybody else.
of course, of course, of course. But like it was so interesting. Like I remember my first day, like I mean, when I was hired, I was like, I like CAD was something that Civil 3D CAD is something that like I use almost on a daily basis. Civil 3D CAD was not even something we even touched in school, right? We did a CAD class and I learned how to draw a bolt and that was super helpful. Like
Yeah, that was the first
not
and
at
last
all.
time you ever drew a bolt, too.
Yeah, it's exactly the first and last time I ever drew a bolt. I but so when I got to my first job, I was like, okay, I don't know anything. What do you want to what do you want me to
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
But fortunately, I was at a company that like they know you don't know anything when you go in there. Like they are well set up to like help you train you to do that. And so like I've had so many people teach me throughout the years of just like what I know. And I like one time I do know the difference between a Y bend and a T bend. I do know that difference, but I had, like, labeled it wrong on one of my drawings one time, and so one of my supervisors pulled me in, she's like, "Do we need to go over the difference between Y bends and T bends?" And I was like, "No, I actually do know the difference between those, it's just I messed that one up. That was, like, on me," like and so
And you
I
make
think
there is such things as what I call typographical errors. Maybe
yes.
as a drawing or whatever, but sometimes you make mistakes.
I
I mean, we're
copied
human.
and pasted a call out, and I should not have copied and pasted a
Yeah,
call out, but
yeah.
that's a long story.
I,
But,
you,
like,
go ahead.
I think, one of the things that I've learned throughout the years is, like, what you do for one person, like, doesn't necessarily work for the next person, like, you have to be adaptable as a mentor or advisor or supervisor, and, like, the teaching methods of different people are different. Like
Yeah,
I have one person that I like would sit down every Friday. and we would go over, like, they would save up their questions. They didn't want to bother me during the week and ask me questions, but they saved up. I made them save up their questions, and every Friday we'd sit down for an hour and go like, okay, here's all my questions that I have had throughout the week that I didn't want to like bother someone about. As much as I tried to be like, just come and ask me the question, he's like, no, 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 I'm not doing that. Like, I'll come. I will save my questions and ask you for one time a week. So that's what I did for that person. The another person, like, no, she would come in. It didn't matter. I could be on a phone call. She's gonna interrupt the phone call and ask me the question. Like, she doesn't care like what I'm doing, and she's
Yeah.
not gonna hesitate to ask me a question. That's perfectly fine too. And so it's just like you have to like realize the different learning styles of different people to like be able to like support them with that. And get them to learn what they need to learn, because I think I can like describe how to grade a stair, and I can describe it to you, I can show it to you, I can draw it to you, I can draw it out, I can literally do it for you and then watch you do it. Like,
Yeah.
like I've done that same concept like so many different ways, because people just learn it differently, like, and there's no right or wrong way to learn it or not learn it. So,
No, in fact, one of the things we talk about in the academic community is you have different kinds of learners, as you said. There's some people that are visual learners, some people are audio, some learn by mistakes, some people uh, don't seem to be able to learn from their mistakes. Those are the people
yeah.
we don't need in engineering, but that's another story. They, the point you made at the beginning, I think, is also equally important to amplify, and that is that the academic environment that you come from, regardless of the university, regardless of how it's crafted, a lot of what you're being taught are some basic thought processes, but
Yeah.
it's not problem solutions. This is you now you move in and you've got to develop additional skills. In fact, if you go back to the licensure model, it's a 4+4. 4 years in academe and 4 years as a tutor. I mean, in tutelage and in mentoring and internship, as we call it now these days, where
Yeah.
I call it apprenticeship, which is really what it should be. And, how do you do this in my company? This is the equipment we use. This is the software we use. This is the standards and the policies we have to deal with. These are the people we deal with, and all of that has to be learned on the job, not in an academic, sanitized, unified, one size fits all kind of environment. All of what you've
Yeah.
suggested. That totally agree. Couldn't agree more. And so
Yeah.
for those listening, if you feel apprehensive as you finish your undergraduate degree and moving in, what am I going to find? You're going to find a whole lot of new stuff, and the learning isn't over.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, keep
And
on.
even I think even 11 years into my career, 11 and a half years into my career, like, the learning's not over. Like, I'm still learning new things.
Yeah,
Like, there's still so much of civil engineering that I don't know and that I don't understand. Like, I have a project where I'm gonna have to design a pump in a minute, on this project, and I'm like, "I don't know how to design a pump. I haven't designed a pump in 11 years of my career." Like, I
design
can
it.
I do it? Uh, it's a sanitary sewer pump.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm just sitting there going, just go specify something off the shelf. It's a whole lot easier than designing your own. But
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we're gonna end up doing, but also, like, I don't know how to even specify it,
yeah,
So,
well,
like,
no, I
I'm like,
understand.
I
Yeah,
gotta go
we were
figure
talking a
out
lot
all
about
of that,
transportation earlier, and now, now you're in
Yeah.
the trenches, literally. Uh,
Yeah.
well,
So,
good luck on the pump station. Uh,
yeah, I
yeah,
might just hand that off to another engineer to design and be like, "Okay, that's your page to stamp and seal, and I'll do the rest."
that's why we have teams. Exactly. Let's slide over into, with this plethora of activities you've been engaged in for more than a decade. Uh, you have any successes or failures you'd like to lift up, and kind of why they succeeded or failed?
Do you mean in, like, organizations, that kinda
Yeah,
thing?
yeah. Sorry, yeah. In terms of working with others, in terms of empowering other people to be the best version of a professional they can be,
Yeah, let's see, I
without
had
names.
yeah, 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 without names. I think it is so important to know when you have to stop training someone. Like, when you've done everything you can to like train someone and they're not getting it.
Yes.
And like there was this one person at my former company. um this person moved teams. And I don't think that they had a great start to their career with their supervisor. It didn't start off well. And so eventually I inherited this person, and I tried to teach this person everything that they need to know. And it just got to one point where I had this person working on a grading plan, and it was redoing the grading plan. So it had already been done once. It was for a fitness center and stuff. And so like it's just grading the parking lot. And I was like, no, like this is like you it should be pretty self-explanatory. And I'm like reviewing this grading plan with them, and there's like one spot and I'm like what is this point? And like I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is a high point that they have a great inlet on. Like you like the highest point in the parking lot, like you have the great inlet. And I was just yeah, I was just like, I'm looking at this. We've gone over this, like this is the fourth or fifth time I've done like gone over this plan with them. And I'm like, what's this? That's the low point, where the great inlet is. And I'm like, I just stopped. I stopped reviewing it at that point, and I was like, okay, thank you so much. We'll come back to this another day. Because at that moment I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
in my head, I'm just like, I need to walk away. I need to like I've done it. I've looked at this so many times. Like it was just so I did, and I kind of just walked away and I said, this is we've got to stop now. Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is it. And I hated that because that person is like incredibly kind, and like I tried so hard, and like and I think that person is doing great at the firm that they're at now, and like they've been there since they left my old company, and like they seem to be doing wonderful, and I'm like so excited for them. And like I've seen that person around a couple of times, and they seem to be doing great. And I'm just like, you know what, that's awesome. But like you have to know like when to stop. Like when is like enough is enough. Like
Well,
you
the,
can only
the
do
the challenge for professionals is only practice in your area of competence. And if it's
so.
an area that you're not competent in, you're supposed to let people know, I can't do this, at least not today. Now, if you want me to learn how to do it, that's one thing. If I want to learn, I mentored a former student of ours several years ago. He had a person in his team, and it just same deal, constantly messing things up. And I said to him, I said, what you need to do as a manager is you need to take this person aside and say, where do you see yourself? Is this what you want to be doing 5 years from now? What is your goal? What is your life goal? What's your personal goal, let alone your professional goal? And the individual actually admitted, said, no, I never really wanted to do this. This is just where I ended up. So the answer
Yeah.
became, well, what is it you want to do? And let me help you get there rather than making both of us miserable trying to get you to do what I need to do. So we had to recognize our limitations and the limitations of others. It doesn't mean you abandon them. It simply means you don't keep asking them to do something they're not competent to do. And obviously
Right.
that's where you ended up. The other problem I see a lot of times in civil, particularly when you're dealing with kind of I hate off the shelf because they're not. They're none of this is ever off the shelf. But things that people tend to think is pretty straightforward. Uh, um, 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 well, hospital, medical facility. Not a lot of innovation in those areas, but there is. There can be. Do you
Mm,
see? What are some ways that you see of trying to, as a mid-career professional, how do you go about trying to suggest innovation as you're developing solutions for your clients?
yeah. So um I will say that hospitals are probably like they actually do have a lot of innovation because there's a lot of things that change with hospitals constantly, especially since COVID. Um, and I think, one of the things that, we talk about in with it is hospitals, they have this like drop off area for patients, but the newer hospitals, and like as we're building newer ones, we were talking about like hospitals need not just a drop off area for patients, but they're having packages delivered, they're having Uber Eats delivered, DoorDash delivered, they're having things delivered where they need space for those vehicles to like just idle for a few minutes at the hospital in order for those to get to those where they need to go. And so like we're seeing so much more of that and so much more of that kind of stuff. So we kind of like are having to like go to hospitals and say like and it's fortunate like because we can go to hospitals and say like, hey, this is your existing hospital, this is how you're running right now, and like here's the problems that we see, like we can make this better just by like what we're seeing right now. Like you had a jam in your drop off area because an Uber Eats person was dropping off food and it took them 20 minutes to get up to where they need to go. We have a better system for that. Like we can send those people to a different location in the hospital, that they're not causing that car jam.
And
And there's
is the owner open to these modifications or these adaptations?
Yeah, generally, because they recognize that it's causing problems and causing
Excellent.
like money. I mean, I think and then
Money.
there's internal things that's like happening too, like hospitals innovations
Mhm.
that are a whole nother thing, but like externally I think we're seeing like a lot of things happening. So
Well, good. It's nice to know that. Again, it goes back to presenting the opportunity. You kind of slid through it, and I'm not to overemphasize it, but the idea that if you show a client why doing something other than what they anticipate is better for operations, either monetarily or human resource or construction costs or operating costs, or in other words,
yeah,
this is better and this is why it's better,
yep,
then they tend to be a little more open to it. It's what we talk about a lot in the general civil area, but talk about life cycle cost analysis. And when you get into it, you'll use a better material initially, which will cost a little bit more, but in the life cycle of the project, saves money all hands over fist. And the
yep,
client more times than not will be intelligent enough. Though I will say I designed one project where the solution had a payback period of 2 months, and the client thought that was too long. And I think, well, I'm sorry, most projects have a 2 year payback. So I did the best I could. But then again, that company actually went out of business 6 months later, I guess in part because of that mindset. So, good deal.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I know. I generally don't have a problem, like, if we're talking about if I can prove doing something, like, will save the client money, like, I mean, I'm gonna suggest it, and
good,
and
good.
and money on the, like, front end or not on the front end. I mean, I can say, like, "Hey, if you do this, it's going to save you maintenance costs long term." They'll consider that too. Like, it's
Yeah,
like,
yep,
that's a big deal, so
very good. Well, let's shift over into another realm. Our guests probably aren't aware that you're expecting. And I don't mean a
yeah.
raise, though you may be expecting a raise or a bonus given the time of year and all the rest of that. You're expecting your first child. And
Yes.
again, as I've said before offline, congratulations. And
Thank
I
you.
hope everything goes well with these next few months as things complete development. The,
Yes.
but in an individual who has lived it, for more than a decade, arguably even to some degree in school, maybe even before school. Do you see, are there changes in how I'm going to say underrepresented groups? So it's not just women in a motherly way. Well, I hate that term too. I don't even know where that came from. That's what
Okay.
my grandmother used to say. But you have diverse people, and diversity is a broad term. People who are
Yeah,
pregnant versus not, people who are bald versus not, people who are a different race, a different creed, a different
parents
color,
versus
a
not.
different what, you're just different.
Yeah.
Whatever, being a difference. Do you see things from where you are in the workplaces you're working in? that there's a more support, different understanding? Are there improvements in the workplace as far as this?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the company. And the way I say that, and it even like depends on the office too. Like, I
True.
think you can
Yeah,
get down to
absolutely.
like
Yeah, totally right.
nitty-gritty to it might be a company policy to do something, but then an office does something different. Um, I think like it's changed, but it's also like hasn't changed in some cases. Like, um,
It's
I
not
think
uniform.
it's not uniform by
Yeah.
yeah, no, by any means whatsoever. I think you get treated so differently just depending on where you're at or what you're doing. And also like what people are aware of. This goes back to that whole communicating thing. I during my first trimester, I was out on a site with a client who I hadn't shared that I was pregnant with yet. And so he had us walk the entire campus.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm in my first trimester, and like I was with another coworker who knew I was pregnant, and so like that coworker kind of like could tell like I was struggling a little bit. And I think fortunately it was not 90 degrees that day. But we walked at least 2 miles that day, and I was like miserable.
I
Like
bet. Ooh,
this is
I'd have been
not
miserable and I wouldn't
fun.
have been pregnant. But
Yeah. Yeah, but, he my coworker kept checking in on me, like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Like, "I'm fine, I'm gonna keep, like, powering through this because I wasn't, like, quite ready to share." But really, I wish I had, like, drove that campus. I was
yeah,
like, "Oh my goodness." But, like, but then there's that same, like, mindset, like, I mean, during so there's, like, different stories, right? I was very sick during my first trimester, like, I was like very, very sick and nauseous all the time. And like there was just days where I was like, I'm not coming into the office because you don't want me there. Like, because it's not gonna be pretty if I do. So I'm just not gonna do it, but I'll work from home. And fortunately my company's like flexible to do that. I There was a story that one of my former coworkers shared of where she was in her first trimester and she went to a client meeting and she's like throwing up in the bushes outside of this meeting. And I'm
oh,
like,
miserable.
yeah. And this was like 10 years ago. She was telling this story. And so it was like 10 years before that she like had the baby or whatever. And I'm just like, I think we've come a little bit further than that, like, so where you're not like you don't have to go, but I'm sure there's still stories of, like, women who are in their first trimester to this day that are, like they're, like, going to the bathroom and getting sick and, like, and not telling anyone because they don't wanna share that and stuff. And it's like so I think there's, like, some cases where we just that and also there was another one, like, my, another one of my former coworkers, she was like telling me, she's like, I just literally had to go take a nap some days. And like, I'll be honest, like even during my first semester, I just had to go take a nap some days. You could, that like tiredness is like a whole nother level. Like I was, I was sleeping until I would go to bed at 8 p.m. I would wake up at 9 a.m. the next morning. I would still be tired and I would take a 6 hour nap during the day and then go back to bed at 8 p.m. Like it was just like you could
Yeah,
not get enough sleep. There was not enough like nausea medicine to like help me not be nauseous and like sick. And it's just, I think that there's a lot to like learn from that too. And another thing is like, and I'm thinking like specifically for parents and like women in general, like right now, like everyone's different. So some people have like first trimester and there's like not a problem. So it's like everyone's different. It comes back to that communication
sure.
piece. But there's another story of like there was an office that had a standing schedule meeting at 7:30 every morning.
Ooh,
And the office opened up at 7:30, so it's like it's not like that's a normal time for the office to open up. But like they had a standing meeting at 7:30 for all the senior leaders in the office, and it's like half of them were still dropping off kids at school. It's
yeah.
like
So,
they've got parents in carpool lines trying to pay attention to this meeting and drop their kids off. And it's like you have to consider that. Like you have to like be empathetic and understanding to like what people are need and stuff. And I think so I think like it's more of like, you have to understand like what people need, what people that you're working with actually need and what works for them because a 7:30 a.m. standing senior leader meeting like just might
Well,
not work.
it's called empathy,
Yeah.
and if just because the 1950s version of an engineering work environment was based on white guys in white shirts with thin black ties, doing whatever the boss said to do, without question or challenge, uh, that's not today. It shouldn't be today. I will amplify what you say in that there's a company in the United States that's constantly being recognized on a national level for its progressiveness and its supportive employees and the kind of work environment that's supportive of everybody, inclusive, and recognizing the expectations of Gen Z versus Gen Y or millennials versus Gen X versus boomers and accommodating that and making that all true. And I happened to visit a couple of years ago when I was ASC president. I sat down in one of the satellite offices for this company, and admittedly, it was an office that the company had acquired from somebody that had established a firm, little local operation. They acquired it because they wanted a local presence. And I'm sitting there with the team in their meeting room, and I comment congratulating them on having such a progressive company and how that manifests with them. And the first words out of somebody's mouth is, "That's not the way it is here." And it
Yep.
was, and we dug in just very superficially, but what it came out to be is just, well, yeah, they hired. It's got their name on the building, but we still run the way it's always run. It's
Yep.
it's 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 still a 1950s operation, and
Yeah.
so it's a bit disappointing to hear that. It also raises the question as to how accountable is the parent company as far as the environment that they are facilitating. So, okay, well that's so. I again to think about where we are on all this, we can do better. I have
Yeah.
advised people in situations that sometimes the solution is to leave the company. And I understand you did make a career change for any combination of
Yeah.
reasons. So that's always an opportunity. I mean, in civil engineering today, as in hot demand as we are, give me a break. In fact, I
Yeah.
know some people that are jumping from firms simply to get a better salary
Yeah.
because we're in such high demand. So it's always, you don't have to live in that environment. Um,
Yeah. And
and
I think that's the thing too of like even if like I think now the dynamic is so different. Like like
yeah,
we need people. Like I mean there's just like there's more work than what we can do. And like if people are having problems like finding people to work for them, like it's a them problem. Like if you can't find someone to hire, it's a you problem, not a they aren't there. Because there's
amen.
people that are willing to work. You just have to like provide an environment where they want to work. And I
Exactly.
think that that's so important. And what's important to one person is not going to be important to the other person. Like, and so
Absolutely true.
it's
Yeah. Well said.
more than your benefits, it's more than the pay, it's more than like it is more than like what you're getting. It's like what that person needs and stuff. And
Yeah. I had an individual arguing with me a couple of years ago that he'd rather have a guy working 60 and 70 hours a week than a woman that came in and worked 50 or 40. But of course, for any combination of reasons, couldn't. And I said, give me the woman because I will guarantee you I will get more out of her in that 60 and 70 hours that you're considering important because you can bill for them. They're not giving you 60 and 70 hours worth of work. Give me a woman that comes in and knows she's got other constraints and manages her times and is productive. I'll get more value out of every hour she gives me than any hour the guy gives me. And
yeah.
he disagreed. And at the end of the day, of course, I was right by my
And at
metric,
the end
at
of the
least.
day, that person like, isn't it like they're not going to have a diverse firm? They're not going to have like,
Well, he didn't. That's actually where the conversation began. He lamented the fact that he didn't have any woman working for him more than 10 years. And I said,
yeah,
you think the women are the problem?
yeah, no, he's the problem. Yeah, yeah,
Anyway, and of course, what was happening is after 10 years, the women went out and started their own firms or found other people. They just got fed up with it. And 10 years was the max. That wasn't the average. Anyway, hey, we're running out of time. There's a comment we had in getting prepped for today that you brought up that I wanted to give you an opportunity to address it directly, and that's community related civil infrastructure and the impacts it has, and more specifically, the role engaging the community as a taxpayer
mhm.
base has on ensuring that the projects are done, or as an inhibition or a prohibition to projects getting done. You want to touch on that just a little bit before we get out of here?
Yeah. Yeah. So we had there's two public hospital there's more than two public hospital systems in the Houston area, but like it's two big ones that are went out for a bond for to build new hospitals. And it was really interesting because one of the hospital systems did a massive campaign to get this bond approved because it did raise taxes. And so they went out into the community. They went to community centers, they went to churches, they went to events, and they explained like here is the hospital infrastructure, here is the failing like parking lots we have, here's the failing like walls that we have internal to the hospital. And they really like engaged with the community and said like, we need to build a new hospital, like what do you need in this hospital, like, we think we can improve wait times, and all this stuff. And so they really like got out in the community, and that bond passed like overwhelmingly, like even though it raised taxes, like no one wants to actually raise taxes, but like that did. And it was like great. There's another one that's like trying the same thing. They've failed overwhelmingly twice. And the second one, I'm just like, arguably, they could make more jobs for the community. They could like that hospital that needs to be improved. They want to try to make it a tier one hospital, which is like the highest level you
Right.
can have. And I'm like, it would be so good for the community, but like they're doing not a fantastic job of like campaigning to the public and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's so it's so important to like actually get people to understand like what you're building and what that impact is. And like honestly, engineers are terrible at explaining
Yeah.
that.
Well, many of
Like
them, not all of us.
yeah,
Uh,
not all of them, but
but,
like I'm
but what
like,
you described in the first case sounded to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the individuals that were promoting the bond issue and the hospital modification partnered with the community and said, "This is what you need. This is what we're going to add. We're going to build what you want." And as a
yep,
result, they support it because this is what we want. I suspect in the second case, it's a more matter of saying, "We know what you want. We know what you need. This is what we're going to build. Support us."
yep,
And yeah, whatever. You know what I need. Sure, you live. I know. Do you? Yeah, I saw you put up Christmas lights two doors down. Uh, not.
yeah,
So yeah, we have to understand it. And it's all facets of civil infrastructure. I know
yep,
that a landfill decades ago in our area, the engineer came in and basically said, "Well, we know exactly how to do this, and we know what's needed for the community, but we're required to have a public hearing. So you can say anything you want to, but we already know what the answer is."
yeah. They're not listening. Yeah,
Oh, that delayed the project by 6 months. It almost never did get approved. Perfectly good project. Not a thing with it. A landfill is operating today, but that is not the way to handle it. You have to engage, you
mhm.
have to be empathetic, you have to understand. That's great. Katie, I'm sorry we've run out of time. I'd love to spend another hour and a half with you and multiply that multiple times over. It's been great to have you with me today. Sorry it's taken this long for us to reconnect at this level, but I'm glad we've been able to. Any parting thoughts? And give you 30 seconds to anything we didn't cover, anything you want to lift up, anything you want to amplify.
I think for my quick advice to any any new hire out there is, build your personal board of directors. Like you need someone who is a buddy, you need a mentor, you need a technical expert, you need a sounding board, you need a career advisor, you need a life coach, you need a supervisor, and you need someone who's going to tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it. Like build that personal board of directors for yourself,
Well
for your as you're going through your life. Like just
put.
find
Well,
those people.
it really is well put. I mean, it's not one person, it's a family of people, some of whom you're accountable to, some of whom you're not accountable to, that are just simply trusted allies in the profession to advise you personally, technically, professionally.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, the goal is to be the best version of a professional that you can be. And Katie, I think you really have succeeded and continue to succeed and will continue to succeed to do that, and I applaud you for it. It's again part of the reason why I invited you. Thanks for spending time with us, folks. This is the end of the end, as it were. We're going to wrap it for today. I appreciate again your taking the time to listen or to watch the podcast. We're available on a variety of platforms, and in that regard, as I started with, and as I always leave, I hope the time that you've invested with us today provides provides dividends for you in your professional and personal life. I hope that we help you in some small way to succeed, to be better than you might have been if you hadn't taken the time to spend time with us. And until that time, be safe, take care. Again, Katie, thanks a lot, and
Bye.
hope to see you again. Yeah, bye or bye.
Bye.